What if I told you that multiple dangerous storms are about to converge on America this week in a way meteorologists are calling unprecedented? Right now, as you're watching this, a record-breaking heat wave is colliding with Arctic air masses, creating a volatile weather pattern that could impact over 50 million Americans in the next 72 hours. In the next 30 seconds, I'm going to show you exactly which states are in the direct path, and at minute 5, I'll reveal the precise timeline for when these storms will hit your area. But first, you need to understand something critical that's happening right at this very moment. A sharp temperature contrast is taking shape across our nation. We're seeing temperatures 30 degrees above average, surging northward, while bitter cold air remains locked over the Midwest, Great Lakes, and Northeast. This dramatic clash, this battle between warmth and cold, is setting the stage for what could be one of the most complex storm systems we've witnessed all winter. Think about it. When warm and cold air masses collide with this much force, what happens? The atmosphere becomes unstable, energized, dangerous. It's like watching two opposing forces meet in battle, and we're caught right in the middle. By Tuesday, and this is just 48 hours away, a large storm system will be impacting the Midwest, Great Lakes, and Northeast with a disruptive mix of snow and ice. But here's where it gets interesting. Even small temperature changes, we're talking just 2 or 3 degrees, could dramatically shift the impacts. The difference between heavy snow, treacherous freezing rain, or mainly rain comes down to these razor-thin margins. Now, you might be asking yourself, how is this possible? How can such small changes create such different outcomes? Stay with me, because what I'm about to explain at the 3-minute 20 mark will change how you prepare for winter storms forever. As we move through this week, a major storm is expected to develop, and here's what's truly remarkable. Forecast models are still showing major differences in the exact outcome. Think about that for a moment. Our most advanced technology, our most sophisticated weather prediction systems, and they're still grappling with the complexity of what's coming. What is becoming clear, however, is that this will be a widespread high-impact system affecting tens of millions of people from Texas to Maine. On the colder side of this system, heavy snow and ice are possible. Farther south, the same storm could bring severe weather, including damaging winds, large hail, and yes, even tornadoes. One storm. Multiple hazards, millions of people in its path. In times like these, we're reminded of the words from the Gospel of Matthew. He makes his sun rise on the evil and on the good, and sends rain on the just and on the unjust. Weather doesn't discriminate. These storms will affect everyone in their path, which is why preparation is not just wise, it's essential. Let me break down exactly what's driving all of this, because understanding the why helps us prepare for the what's coming. Our jet stream, that river of air high in the atmosphere that guides our weather systems, is undergoing a dramatic change. Right now, it's flowing out of the northwest, across the Midwest and Northeast, funneling that colder air into those regions. We're already seeing snow and ice concerns this very morning. Meanwhile, along the west coast, we have what meteorologists call a deep trough developing over California and Nevada. This is a large area of low pressure. And by the middle and end of this week, all that energy is going to spill over the Rocky Mountains and move into the Great Plains, the Ohio Valley, and impact the East Coast. Here's the critical part, and don't miss this. We're expecting at least one major storm to impact the United States later this week, with snow, ice, and severe weather all on the table. But between now and then, we'll be seeing smaller storm systems, these Alberta Clippers as we call them, bringing the potential for snow and ice across the Midwest, Great Lakes, and Northeast. Around Tuesday and Wednesday, expect at least one of those Alberta Clippers. Then by Thursday and Friday, we're going to have a powerful storm system moving right over the Rockies. The timing of this is absolutely crucial because it will determine who sees severe weather, who faces the threat of snow and ice, and who experiences record-breaking heat. Yes, you heard that right. Record-breaking heat in January while others are dealing with ice storms. That's the incredible contrast we're facing. Now, let me walk you through what's happening today and tomorrow, step by step, because this is where preparation begins. Across the Midwest and Northeast today, we have snow making its way across New York and New England throughout the daytime. If you're traveling in these areas, Anticipate slower conditions where moderate to heavy snow falls. It'll be pretty isolated in nature, and by tonight, it moves out. But here's where things get concerning, and this is information you need to act on immediately. Overnight tonight, a more dangerous situation is developing across the Midwest. We are expecting freezing rain and sleet to become a serious concern tonight into tomorrow across Minnesota and Wisconsin. Listen carefully. Untreated roadways will be dangerous. Some areas could pick up around half an inch of ice. That's ice storm criteria. Now, it's only going to affect maybe a few counties, but if you're in Wisconsin or Minnesota, pay very close attention because tonight into tomorrow morning, there's going to be a very narrow band of freezing rain stretching from Minneapolis back through Wausau. By early tomorrow morning, that freezing rain will be at peak intensity near Green Bay, Wausau, and over towards Eau Claire. These areas could be dealing with heavy freezing rain, leading to a quarter to half an inch of ice accumulation. Half an inch of ice? Think about what that means. Tree branches snapping, power lines coming down, roads becoming skating rinks. If you have a generator, now is the time to make sure it's ready. Flashlights, batteries, emergency supplies. Don't wait until the power goes out. As the book of Proverbs reminds us, the prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. There's no shame in being prepared. In fact, it's the wise thing to do. By Tuesday morning, we'll continue to see freezing rain across northern Michigan and northern Wisconsin. Then around lunchtime, the freezing rain should start to wind down for most of the Midwest. A little snow might linger, and we'll see a mix of freezing rain and snow across central and northern New England heading into late Tuesday night and early Wednesday morning. There might be just enough ice accumulation to cancel some schools on Wednesday, so parents, take note. Any untreated roadways will be slippery, though hopefully road crews in those areas will be on top of it. By Wednesday afternoon, we're done with that storm. But then, and this is the part I mentioned at the beginning, we have a much larger storm impacting far more people on Thursday and Friday. At the 5-minute mark, I promise you the precise timeline, and here it is. In terms of total snowfall from this first system, most areas are looking at 3 to 6 inches of snow. Pretty ordinary for Michigan. Back over in the Northeast, also a typical snow event on Wednesday with widespread 3 to 6 inches. Higher elevations could see closer to 8 or 9 inches, but nothing extraordinary when it comes to snowfall totals. The bigger concern, and I cannot stress this enough, is the ice accumulation. Many areas in Wisconsin and Minnesota will pick up as much as a quarter to half an inch of ice in a very thin, narrow corridor. Basically, anywhere from Minneapolis back to Green Bay, ice storm criteria could be met on Tuesday. In the Northeast, if you're anywhere from Boston and even southern New Hampshire back into Maine, this is another area where we could see around a tenth to a quarter inch of ice. A few locations might get closer to half an inch, so ice storm criteria could be met in New England as well. Now, there's some uncertainty in the exact placement of this ice band. Different forecast models are showing slightly different tracks. One model shows the heaviest ice near Stevens Point, Eau Claire, and Green Bay. Another shows it further north. Either way, if you're anywhere from Minneapolis to central Wisconsin, be prepared for the possibility of significant icing tonight into early tomorrow morning. Where you have the most significant ice, that's where power outages become a real possibility. Make sure you're ready. Let's talk about the West Coast for a moment, because what's happening there is going to directly impact what happens to the rest of the country. Multiple storms continue hammering areas from San Francisco to Seattle. Tomorrow is going to be particularly messy if you're in Washington or Oregon. Expect a lot of mountain snow, heavy rainfall along the coastline, and wind gusts around 30 to 40 miles per hour. On Wednesday, some of that moisture will start to sneak over into the southern plains and across the northern Rockies. That's when we're going to see our next large storm begin to form. It starts to really organize on Thursday, but Wednesday night, that moisture starts transporting over the Rocky Mountains. By Thursday, we should have a pretty broad area of low pressure developing over Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas. This is the beginning of what could be 1 or even 2 different large storms between Thursday and Saturday. Yes, possibly 2 separate storm systems. This is where things get really interesting and honestly a bit unusual. Thursday afternoon, we're expecting a storm to form across the southern and central plains and the mid-Mississippi Valley. Severe weather may be on the table in Missouri, Arkansas, eastern Oklahoma, and southeast Kansas, perhaps even Texas. We're talking damaging winds, hail, maybe an isolated tornado threat. But what gets really strange, and this is the twist I promised you, is what happens on Friday. We're going to have a large storm impacting the Midwest back into the Northeast. Wind gusts will be quite high across the board for the Midwest and Ohio Valley. Severe storms will be possible Friday across the Southeast and maybe even the Ohio Valley with damaging winds, hail, and perhaps a few tornadoes. Here's the unusual part. We're going to have more moisture trying to cross the Rockies on Friday. We could see a secondary low-pressure system form, or some of that moisture could merge into the large, broad area of low pressure across the Midwest. This could create an area of heavier snow Friday night into Saturday morning for Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Illinois. Different computer models are showing very different scenarios here. One model shows a much more significant threat of snow, heavy rain, and severe weather across Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. It depicts a much stronger storm across the Midwest and Ohio Valley. We'd be talking about heavy rain for many areas, with record warmth possible in Ohio, Indiana, and Kentucky. But that area of moisture behind the storm could become a separate system or merge with the main low pressure on Friday. If it becomes separate, we could actually be dealing with two different major storms. The second one could bring severe weather to the southeast Friday into Saturday and a more significant snow threat that could reach as far south as the Texas Panhandle. Think about that for a second. Snow in the Texas Panhandle, while other areas see tornadoes. This is the kind of extreme weather contrast that's becoming our new reality. By Saturday morning, one model shows a more significant batch of snow with heavy accumulations possible for parts of Illinois and Wisconsin, along with higher winds. When you have heavy snow combined with strong winds, you get blizzard conditions. That's a real possibility for parts of the Midwest. Now, I know this sounds complicated, and you might be wondering, why is there so much uncertainty? Here's the thing. It's actually unusual to have this much disagreement between different forecast models only about 4 days out from a major storm event. There's still a lot to sort out with this system, and that's exactly why you need to stay informed. However, here's what we know for certain. We're going to see plenty of rain Thursday into Friday, essentially from Texas back to Michigan and Ohio. Severe storms Thursday are likely in the mid-Mississippi Valley, possibly as far south as the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Then severe weather Friday looks more probable further east in Dixie Alley and the Ohio Valley. Winter storm potential is definitely there, especially in the Midwest, but the exact details are still a big question mark. Snow could fall as far south as Texas or Oklahoma, or it could be confined to northern Minnesota. There's still a lot to unpack here, which is why checking back tomorrow for updates is so important. By then, we should have a much clearer picture. The forecast is tricky right now because we have two different air masses moving over the Rockies in close succession, and that creates tremendous complexity. Now, even with all these storms, there's another major story this week that might seem contradictory at first. We're about to experience another winter heat wave across most of the United States. Yes, a heat wave in January. Let that sink in for a moment. By Tuesday afternoon, we'll have a widespread area from Montana to the Gulf Coast with temperatures as high as 30 degrees above average. 30 degrees above average in January. This will continue Wednesday and Thursday for most of the country. Before Friday, we should see a cold front roll through many areas across the Midwest, but it won't be very strong. In fact, we could actually see some record-breaking high temperatures in Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan. It's going to depend on exactly where that storm tracks on Friday. Record-breaking high temperatures are a real possibility. Can you imagine one part of the country dealing with ice storms while another is breaking heat records? It's a reminder of just how dynamic and powerful our atmosphere can be. Saturday and Sunday, we should have a stronger cold front move across most of the Great Plains, Midwest, and along the East Coast. But this isn't going to be the type of cold front that brings winter crashing into your home. It won't be that severe for most areas. Temperatures will be only about 10 degrees below average across the southeast by next Monday. So we're dealing with a heat wave all week long. Many areas will have record-breaking low and high temperatures. It's an incredible contrast, and it speaks to the changing patterns we're seeing in our weather systems. As we wrap up, let me remind you of something important. In the midst of all these forecasts, all these warnings, all this uncertainty, there's a deeper truth we can hold on to. The psalmist wrote, "He sends his command to the earth. His word runs swiftly. He gives snow like wool. He scatters the frost like ashes." Weather is powerful. Yes, it can be dangerous. It demands our respect and our preparation, but we're not helpless in the face of it. We have the tools, the technology, and the wisdom to prepare. We have communities that come together in times of crisis. We have the strength that comes from faith and from looking out for one another. So here's what you need to do right now. If you're in the path of tonight's ice storm in Minnesota or Wisconsin, make sure you have your emergency supplies ready. Generator, flashlights, batteries, food, water. Check on your elderly neighbors. Make sure they're prepared too. If you're in the Midwest or Northeast, stay informed about Thursday and Friday's storm system. The forecast will become clearer over the next 24 to 48 hours, and you'll want to know exactly what's headed your way. For those in areas where severe weather is possible, now is the time to review your safety plans. Know where your safe spot is in your home. Make sure your weather radio has fresh batteries. Have multiple ways to receive warnings. And for everyone, regardless of where you are, remember that preparation isn't about fear. It's about wisdom. It's about being good stewards of our safety and the safety of those around us. It's about community, responsibility, and care. Tomorrow, we'll have updated forecasts with much more clarity on these storm systems. The models will have come into better agreement and will be able to give you more specific information about timing, amounts, and impacts for your particular area. But here's something else you'll want to know. Next week, we're tracking another potential major weather pattern shift that could bring even more significant changes. The long-range models are hinting at something developing that could affect the entire eastern half of the country. We'll have all those details for you in tomorrow's update. Until then, stay safe, stay prepared, and stay informed. The weather doesn't take a day off, and neither do we in keeping you updated and ready for whatever comes our way. Remember, knowledge is power, but only if we act on it. Check back tomorrow for the latest updates, and may God keep you and your family safe through these storms.